In early 2018, in our country, the prospects of large-scale religious conflicts and even the destruction of churches are getting increasingly evident. While in previous years such conflicts affected exclusively remote villages where two confessions could not divide the only Orthodox temple, now the fire hotbeds break out in the largest cities of Ukraine, and they flare up literally, in the truest sense of the word. On February 3rd, in Lvov, Vladimir's temple of the UOC was burned, which had been attacked by radicals several days before. And in Kiev there is a long-lasting and large-scale conflict around the Tithe monastery, which is located near the foundation of the Tithe church. On January 25th, there was an attempt to set fire to this temple, but the fire was out, and the police succeeded in detaining two criminals. Yet on January 26th, the Tithe church was attacked again. In the aftermath of the attack on the office of the Union of Orthodox Journalists, the radicals from Organization S14 headed for the temple, where with the help of the angle grinder they cut off the church gate and destroyed the information stand. As early as on February 3rd, near the Tithe church, a large-scale confrontation between hundreds and thousands of people followed. Radicals urged their supporters to demolish the Orthodox church and release its arsonists. The monks of the monastery asked the Orthodox to attend the prayer service and pray for the protection of the shrine. Both the Moleben prayer and the rally took place almost simultaneously. There was up to 3,000 believers with 200 protesters. We can see both sides. Believers were praying. And the protesters entertained themselves as best they could.
Don't bother, you can't get jaws.
The media have launched a wide support for arsonists, who are not called criminals but solely as architects, depicting them as fighters for justice and demand to set them free. Freedom to architects, the FSB construction to the dump. Architects who tried to set fire to the Church of the Moscow Patriarchate in Kiev are at large. They undertook an action, drew attention to a very important problem for the society. In the media, they use their standard manipulations, or more simply, blatant falsehood. Since the number of radicals was considerably less, headlines that Kievites came to demand the demolition of the UOC church, publications like Espresso, Ukrainian Truth or Left Bank illustrated with photos not of the radicals but of the believers who were really numerous. However, what did the Desatini shrine do so that they suddenly urged it to be demolished? Built arbitrarily by the priests of the UOC Moscow Patriarchate. For the Ministry of Education, it is a small architectural form. We are trying to find out if there is any permission for the temple construction. The nun, without blinking her eye, affirms yes, there is. We are acting within the law of Ukraine. Meanwhile, such documents do exist.
У 2000 році та
In 2000 and 2004, there were orders of the President of Ukraine about the need to revive the Church of Tithe at this place.
Десятинну церкву.
The first order of 2000 refers to the revival of the Church of Tithe, while the second paragraph of the decree of 2004 refers to the construction of a memorial chapel of the Church of Theotokos at Tithe Temple. We must rely on the documents. To date, the roster of property rights for real estate registered ownership of the chapel in the name of the religious community of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church Tithe Temple. And here it is clearly indicated where this temple is located and how it is called. This is a chapel. The ownership right is based on the court decision of 2012. These claims come from the author of the petition on demolition of the Desatini, a neo-pagan. I want to remind you that this is the territory of the Tripili and Zarubinets Scythian culture. Actually, it is the territory of the historical heritage of Ukraine. The building must be demolished. A similar thesis is voiced by MP from Batkivshchina Igor Lutsenko, who filed an application with the prosecutor's office about the destruction of the archaeological monument by the monastery. The foundation laid in the ground destroyed the cultural layer. Can a wooden frame surrounded by the stone destroy a cultural layer? Everyone will decide for themselves. And we propose to walk from the temple to Desatini Lane within 5-meter distance. Here, at number 35, there is a very interesting building, a newly built office center of the Kiev Patriarchate. This monster has a very interesting story. The UOCKP confirmed it is going to make a construction in Desatini Lane of the capital. Last week around this address, a scandal broke out. Here there were destroyed buildings of the 19th century from which they removed the status of architectural monument several years ago. It means we cannot even get historical materials. This is always done when one needs to sneakily dismantle the building and construct something here. Why they are brutalizing the city, I don't know. They have premises at 36 Pushkinskaya Street, and this is purely a commercial project, the construction of an office and housing center with apartments for the hierarchs. The rest of the apartments will go on sale. This will be a building in which offices and housing will be located, which will be used in favor of the church. I emphasize that this is not a church, an office and a housing center is under construction. This is an exclusively commercial project. This is not a worship building, it's not a building for the church, it's an office center. But the most curious thing is that these works were disguised as archaeological excavations, since it turned out that the foundation of the palace of Prince Vladimir is located on this territory. The most unique monument of history and architecture of Ukraine, which has just a few rarities of such kind. A stone from the foundation of Prince Vladimir's palace, which crosses all the way. This is the city of Prince Vladimir. One cannot build anything here under the law. The greatest crime is the foundation of the palace of Prince Vladimir. Under the ground there is a foundation of the palace of Prince Vladimir dating back to the 10th century. The Institute of Archaeology confirms this is an invaluable part of Kiev from an archaeological point of view. In this area, archaeological research of everything available there should be carried out. The territory of the palace should be preserved in the form it is. The Kiev Patriarchate completed its office monster in 2015. The foundation of the palace of Prince Vladimir was destroyed. There is now an underground parking lot instead of it. But there is no talk about UOCKP now. It's about those activists who have now gained power, or rather, about their amazing transformation. Here, they want to build a structure that will have a trade and economic purpose. This territory is not intended for that. The right to use, the right to lease for the Kiev Patriarchate is not based on anything at all. That is no decision of Kiev Council where the building permit has ever been received. Igor Lutsenko became a deputy in 2014. Activist Marina Solovyova kick-started her career too. It would seem there are all levers to fight for justice, to demolish barbarous buildings and take care of the destroyed monuments of Ukraine. But the paradox, after gaining power, these people completely forgot about the monster in Desatini Lane, but suddenly began to fight for the demolition of Tithe temple, a small church that does not bother anyone, does not destroy anything, and in which hundreds of Kievites pray.
Що за правовий статус цих незаконних споруд? Незаконний, звісно, на мій погляд.
Звернутися про скасування, це цивільний кодекс, позов в суд про скасування реєстрації.
The business center of the Kiev Patriarchate has now become right, while the Church of the UOC wrong. Here is the justice. Exactly the same justice struck the Ministry of Culture, which after 10 years of the temple's existence suddenly became concerned with the demolition of the church through the court. Illegal construction. The small architectural form is located on the land of especially valuable areas and leads to damage of cultural heritage sites. Now, in Ukraine, the law on decommunization is in effect. We condemn the crimes of the Soviet regime, but we often forget that one of the main blows of that power was dealt against the church. The priests were shot, the temples destroyed, the church property and the lands were taken away. The temple of Tithe, which had stood for almost 1,000 years, was blown up in 1928. Before long, the communists began to construct the building of an art school on this site, which was later turned into a museum. And now the owner is a communist-built museum which received the church land from communists at a time, while the church is a poor stepdaughter, having no rights and being expelled, including with the hands of young Ukrainian patriots. Many of those young patriots of the USSR who were sent by the Soviet propaganda in the 1920s to burn icons and smash churches under the guise of struggling for a bright communist future did not even realize that they were being used and deceived. A bright future never came. But we know a lot of examples when these atheists and their families ended their lives very, very tragically. Do modern theomachists realize they are being used? On February 2nd, in Kiev, a group of radicals dismantled the cross established by the church on the site of another church, St. George the Victorious, destroyed by the communists. Then, what is the difference between those communists and the contemporary nationalists if the end result is the same? Only the fact they are separated by 100 years. Take a look at the young guys from S14, who are nudged by their senior fellows to attack the temple. Many of them are 16, 17 years old, and they certainly are sure they bring benefit to their country by fighting the church, drawing closer its bright future. Life in the Soviet Ukraine got no better or brighter at the cost of the ruined temples. Will it become brighter if the churches are destroyed in now independent Ukraine?